As First Ministers, we've all been very politely sitting around and admiring the problem, and that it was time for us to stop doing that and to take action. I am pleased to say that the vast majority, if not all, of the folks at the table supported most of what I had to say. I've specifically made requests of the government which are not dissimilar from what I've already spoken about. Short-term support for industry and workers in the oil patch in terms of job protection over the course of the next few months. Medium-term support in terms of rail capacity and ensuring takeaway capacity. And then, of course, long-term support around improving our ability to build important infrastructure across this country to ensure that we get fair value for our products. We also had a good conversation about the idea of energy corridor of different types and being a bit more intentional and thoughtful around that process. So, you know, we'll see where it ends up, but I am pleased that we were able to spend more time on the agenda talking about something which I think everyone understands is fundamentally important to the economic well-being of every Canadian. We started out by receiving the good news about job creation this morning, but one of the things people needed to hear was a good part of that came from job growth in Alberta. But that is job growth that was growing and which we're very happy about, but that is threatened if we don't take charge of the situation with the discounted price in oil. And that is why we need to make it a focus so that we get a win out of this. So I'm happy to take a few questions.
Were other premiers supportive of you? We saw reports from the media that Legault specifically has said that he doesn't think that he's uninterested in helping out on pipelines, and he doesn't think that federal cash should be going to Alberta.
I didn't hear anything about federal cash not going to Alberta. He didn't raise any concerns in the room about the concern that I was outlining. I think he certainly is interested in moving Quebec away from being as dependent on Alberta's economy as it currently is. But he acknowledged that, frankly, that Alberta's success does have an impact in Quebec because we are significant contributors to Confederation. And certainly there were other premiers who were very supportive of the concerns that we raised. Commitments, anything like that? Not as of yet. Nope. What we did was we definitely raised the profile of the issue. We made it very clear what we are looking for. I think there's willingness to look at it, but we don't have the answer yet. I've got to be frank on that.
So what's the next step then?
Well, we're just going to keep pushing. As I said, you know, when it comes to the medium-term solution, we can't afford to dither. As I said before, admiring the problem is a tactic of the past, and it is not one that actually prevents crisis. And so we are going to act. And so our province is going forward to invest in rail because, quite frankly, we have to make sure that we maintain the ability to sell our product not at an outrageously discounted price. And the only way to do that is to move forward. But at the end of the day, moving products from one province to another is not actually a provincial responsibility. This country was built on the basis of a national leader deciding that building a railway across the country was a way to build the country. And quite frankly, some of those principles are still in play. And we have made the request that we get some support in finding a medium-term way to get this fundamentally important product to markets in a way that allow all Canadians to get the greatest value possible out of the resource.
In Montreal newspaper today. Sorry for my French. Do you believe that François Legault or the Quebec needs to do his part for the oil to cross the country pretty much export the markets. Do you believe that Quebec has to do something regarding this? Because you did these advertisements this morning.
Well, I think all of Canada needs to understand that it doesn't make sense that on one hand, here we have a product, so oil and gas, as I said, it contributes over $100 billion a year to Canada's GDP. Albertans contribute over $5,000 per year per capita, more than they receive from the fiscal arrangement with Confederation. That's compared to the next most generous province, which I believe is Ontario, at around $1,150. So this is an important issue for all Canadians. The way we do that is by selling our product in a way that is strategic on an international level. So what we just did on Sunday in Alberta was we made a decision to curtail our production by about 325,000 barrels per day at the same time that around about, just a little bit more than that, of foreign oil is being brought into Canada, in Eastern Canada. Does that make sense to you? I mean, when we import foreign oil into Canada, the money made by the foreign people that are importing into Canada, that doesn't go to infrastructure in Canada. It doesn't go to Canada's schools or hospitals. But when Alberta's oil is sold in Canada, the profit from it actually goes back to Canada. So it makes sense for all of Canada to be more strategic around this. The other thing that I will say, one other thing I will say, is that we spent a lot of time today talking about trade. And that's fundamentally important. We know how important that is for everybody here. But the difference between trade and what I talked about today is that we control all of the decisions that I talked about today. We have so much control over trade, but we absolutely have control over how we organize, how we move our products around this country, and how we organize, how we get our products to market.
You talk about a national leader, it's up to him to move the products. Are you losing faith in the national leader to get your product moved?
No, not at all. I'm just reminding all national leaders that they have a role to play, and that it is at all of the national. It is at the expense of all Canadian citizens when all national leaders do not play that role. Thank you.